The topic of gentrification came up when we talk about urban renewal. Gentrification is a part of urban renewal, and urban renewal basically goes in to an area that doesn't necessarily have a political voice and changes the infrastructure as well as the actual architecture of that area.
Basically, gentrification is the displacement of a population from one area of the city to the other. Oftentimes, the people are displaced by people pertaining to a different social class with more power that ultimately acquires the property of these people. We have seen it throughout the years. I think there have been various cycles of gentrification historically here in Tucson. The most dramatic situation Tucson has seen in the 20th century is the building of the Tucson Community Center and the displacement of the entire Hispanic neighborhood. The most dramatic gentrification Tucson has experienced was the construction of the Tucson Convention Center and the destruction of Barrio Viejo in 1964. Barrio Viejo was located in downtown Tucson and was the highest populated neighborhood at that time with over 8,000 residents. With the building of the Tucson Convention Center, all of those residents were forced out of the area. I think the displacement was very fast and very dramatic. And culturally, the city changed a lot, from a city where Hispanic culture was rich to a city where it was seen less and less. The places where Hispanic culture was rich began getting displaced to the southern and western parts of Tucson, and a lot of the Hispanic presence downtown disappeared.
At the time, city planners thought it was a good idea. The problem is that they didn't talk to the community who had a stake and a history in living there. You know, there's pros and cons of gentrification. The pros, you know, some would argue that, you know, they increase the property values, they increase the stability of the area, they bring in other goods and services that weren't there, some would say, in the beginning. And some would see it as a win-win situation where the infrastructures are redeveloped, added on to, services are added, and the property values increase, and you have more affluent people moving into the areas. But on the other hand, you have a lot of displacement of the population that was originally there, who have history beyond what we define now as the United States of America, you know, and so they have this history, ongoing history, have this presence, this place, this space here in Tucson that they've grown to love, grown to feel comfortable in, and so what happens in displacement of this population is there's a lot of psychological trauma involved. And so people lose their sense of belonging, lose their sense of identity, lose their sense of history of that place and them growing up and what that used to confer in terms of their customs, their traditions, their, like I said, sense of identity.
So today within Tucson, there's a couple more examples of gentrification. One specific example that many people know about is Mercado San Agustin, where a lot of tourists visit from out of town to view sort of the Hispanic or Mexican culture that's there. There's a bakery, there's a restaurant, there's a coffee house that all like try to stick to the traditional Mexican ways in a European style. It's kind of becoming known as Chicano chic. Gentrification is neither a good thing or a bad thing. I personally would buy a house in a couple of the gentrified areas because I really like what they're doing with it. I'm a big supporter of being able to live in like an urban cityscape area where there's access to public transportation, there's a lot of things within a walkable distance. However, on the side of gentrification where people are losing their homes and they're getting kicked out for lower costs than their homes are actually worth, that's where I get a little iffy on the situation, because I think it's important that we maintain the culture and the people that lived there before the area was gentrified or urbanized, while urbanizing and allowing people to move in there and to take advantage of the great things it has to offer.